Today, we are going to tackle a future that might be way closer than you think. A future where we could live to be 150 years old. We're going to explore what that really means for our society, for our jobs, and yeah, even for our closest relationships, like marriage.
So let's just kick things off with a pretty wild question from the historian Yuval Noah Harari. If you lived to be 150, what would happen to your marriage? Seriously, would till death do us part even make sense anymore? This question, as personal as it sounds, is actually the perfect way to start unpacking some massive changes on the horizon, because the technologies that could let us live that long, they're also rewriting humanity's oldest dreams.
You see, for thousands and thousands of years, the human story was all about survival. But now that we've kind of won those old battles, humanity is aiming for something way, way more ambitious. For most of history, these three things basically ran the show: famine, plague, and war. They were the fundamental facts of life, shaping every single part of society. They were just seen as these acts of God, or forces of nature that you just had to grit your teeth and endure. But over the last 100 years or so, the whole script has just flipped. I mean, get this. For the first time in history, more people now die from eating too much than from starvation. More people die of old age than from infectious diseases. It's wild. We've basically taken these huge, uncontrollable tragedies and turned them into manageable problems. And that success has totally changed what we're focused on.
So what's on the new to-do list for humanity? Well, Harari argues they're nothing short of godlike. First, the plan is to defeat death itself, to basically achieve immortality. Second, to engineer guaranteed happiness, probably through chemistry and genetics. And third, to upgrade ourselves from Homo sapiens into what he calls Homo Deus, basically humans as gods.
Now, this isn't just some abstract sci-fi stuff. These goals have huge real-world implications for how we live our lives, which of course brings us right back to that first question. What on earth does this do to marriage? 150. Just let that number sink in for a second. Not as the absolute oldest a person could get, but as a potential average lifespan. This isn't just about tacking on a few extra years of retirement, it's about completely redesigning the entire arc of a human life from the ground up.
Harari puts the problem really bluntly. Our institutions, like marriage, were built for lives half this long. If you get married at 40 in this new world, you could still have 110 years of marriage ahead of you. Can one single relationship really last that long? Can it survive that much change as both of you reinvent yourselves over and over? Harari seems to think it's unlikely. But is that the only way to look at it? Or could a 110-year marriage be a chance for a kind of deep, shared growth we can't even imagine today? A whole new definition of building a life together?
And a big reason for his skepticism comes down to the changing role of family. You know, traditionally, raising kids was the central project of a marriage, taking up a huge portion of your adult life. But in a 150-year life, that project shrinks to become a much, much smaller episode. The thing that once anchored a lifelong partnership becomes just one chapter in a very, very long book.
Okay, so a 110-year marriage is one thing to wrap your head around, but the societal impact of all this goes way beyond our personal lives. Harari predicts this same technological leap will create the single deepest social divide in all of human history.
He introduces a concept with a really chilling name, the useless class. Not unemployed, but unemployable. As AI and algorithms get better than us at everything, driving, diagnosing diseases, writing music, what happens to the billions of people who just don't have an economic purpose anymore? This all points to a terrifying new kind of inequality. In the 20th century, we talked about economic inequality, the gap between the rich and the poor. But the inequality of the 21st century, Harari thinks it could be biological, a gap between people who can afford to literally upgrade their bodies and minds and everyone else who can't. Just think about it for a second. The biotech that lets people live to 150, gene editing, nanobots, you name it, it's going to be unbelievably expensive. This could mean a small, wealthy elite gets to become Homo Deus, living longer, healthier, smarter lives, while the so-called useless class gets left behind, not just in their bank accounts, but in their very biology.
So you have to ask, what kind of belief system, what new religion could possibly justify a world like this? Well, Harari argues it's already here, and he calls it dataism.
Dataism isn't about gods or human feelings. It's the belief that the entire universe is just a flow of data. Every living thing, you, me, a tree, we're all just algorithms. And in this view, the highest good, The most valuable thing you can do is to increase the flow and processing of information. Your worth is literally measured by your contribution to the data set.
If you think about it, it's a logical, if kind of terrifying progression. For thousands of years, authority came from the gods. Then, with the humanist revolution, we decided authority comes from within us, our feelings, our free will. But now, that authority is shifting again. It's moving to outside algorithms that, thanks to big data, might soon know us better than we know ourselves.
So in this worldview, humanity's ultimate purpose isn't enlightenment or happiness. It's just to build a massive, all-knowing data processing system, and then basically merge with it and get out of the way. It's a pretty bleak picture, right? But is it the only possible future?
Well, luckily, not everyone buys into that future. The economist Yuval Nakatani, for example, offers a totally different path. It's a path that requires shifting our whole way of thinking, away from the cold logic of data and back towards something a little more human.
Nakatani says that modern capitalism has always run on a logic of exclusion. It makes profits by exploiting some kind of outside, whether that's nature, other countries, or even our own data. The future Harari describes is just that logic taken to its extreme. But Nakatani says we have to pivot to a logic of inclusion.
So what does that actually look like? Well, it's about reimagining what capitalism is for. It means companies focus on creating shared value, where the most profitable thing you can do is solve a big problem, like climate change or taking care of the elderly. It means seeing the vulnerable not as a problem to be managed, but as a source of creativity. And it means treating nature like a partner, not a resource. It's not about throwing capitalism away, but about regenerating it from the inside out.
And that really brings us to the fundamental choice, doesn't it? The technology that will shape our future, it's already here. But the philosophy that will guide it, that's still very much up for grabs. So will we follow the path of pure data and efficiency, a path that risks creating a world of gods and people deemed useless? Or can we build a future based on inclusion, one that values our shared humanity and our planet? That right there is the choice that this century is putting right in front of us.